I saw a Reddit thread a couple of days ago that said Kyousuke is the most overrated player in current CS, and that might be exaggerating a little bit, but I do think people are realizing something, and it's that his stats and his eye test don't necessarily line up. And I'm not saying his eye test, in terms of his aim, is one of the best out there. In fact, it's incredible. But looking at this round and this game in general is a great example of what I'm talking about. But first, our sponsor. Skinland is a fantastic marketplace for buying and selling skins and an official partner of Team Vitality. Skinland has great pricing, often lower than the Steam market, with plenty of ways to add funds or cash out easily. They even allow your balance to be used right away without needing to wait the full week for Steam's trade hold period. With the recent knife trade up update, many skins have become cheaper, which can make this a great time to find a deal on a skin you've been waiting for, or just a skin that catches your eye. And selling on Skinland is simple. Choose the skins you want to sell, pick your payment method, and relax. It's that easy. Skinland has also offered a bonus. If you use my code, you get $10 when you sell 100 worth of skins. He can get frags, but he'll get them in a way that doesn't necessarily win his team's rounds the way you would generally expect someone getting that number of kills would. So in this game, he actually ends up being the top fragger, although not by very much, and Round Swing actually pushes his rating to be the bottom on the team. He got like 18 kills. I think the bottom frag had 14, and he's the bottom rating. But I think this happens with Kyousuke quite often, and it's not necessarily always picked up by Round Swing. That last round, as an example, he could have gotten one and fallen off, and his team would have been in a very good position to win that round. Instead, he stayed spraying at the smoke with a Galil long range, which, by the way, is just incredibly inaccurate, even if you're confident in your spray, ended up dying and gave the kill right back. On this individual round, I don't think he did necessarily anything wrong. His opponents take top banana control, he goes for the re-aggress, and his opponents are fairly ready for it. I would say that there is a potential macro issue where it has become very obvious that the only thing, or at least from my perspective, the only thing I see Kyousuke and Kixan really find success with on Banana, on Inferno, is aggressive plays. So it does feel like they force aggressive plays a little bit more often than you would necessarily want them to, and that means that their opponents are going to be more likely to put more players there, have players ready for anti-flash, have players ready for these aggressive plays than they would against a lot of other teams, and in doing so, an individual play might not be a mistake in itself, but the style of play might be a little bit too readable, a little too easy to counter, and so opponents are just ready for those. However, again, in that specific scenario, I don't think he did anything wrong. It was just an aggressive play that went wrong. However, throughout this half, you're going to see he's going to continue getting aggressive almost every round, and oftentimes when they do get an advantage, which sometimes they don't, he's going to end up giving that advantage right back. The following round, they'll once again be against pistols, and there's nothing wrong with going aggressive against pistols. They have to use a ton of utility to take map control. I've said this a million times, but they have to decide where to use that utility, and if they don't use it on Banana early, that means that you get free Banana control, and if they do, that means that you have a lot of information and you can always pivot into a more passive play if you need to. Eventually, they're going to get pushed off. In fact, they have tons of utility to work with as well, but they have a very good situation. Nothing wrong with this setup at all, and honestly, the macro gameplay here isn't bad in any way, really. They spot out a player, Kixan's going to smoke it off, they decide to hold on to control, and while doing that, you can see the aggression coming out from Falcons to retake mid. This could be 2 or 3 people from Tyloo just taking top banana control, so you can take over with your mid players and retake control of the other side of the map. This is what the push-pull idea you might hear people talk about often is about. So you can try and hold on to control of this if you want to. I mean, realistically, it's also possible they should have fallen back onto the bomb site, but let's say they want to hold control of this. Kyousuke is in a good position to do so, and he just misses a few shots. And this is one of the things about Kyosuke's aim. It's not as consistent as a donk, where he's never going to miss the kills he should. He hits some ridiculous kills, some ridiculous reactions, timings. He hits some insane shots, but at the same time, he's also liable to miss some kind of easy ones from time to time. And that's one where if he just hits 2 kills there, he's in a very good position. Certainly doesn't help on the other side that Kixan sprays down to 8 bullets through the smoke, missing a spam lineup that he should probably know, but he probably didn't need to do that. At the same time, I think if Kyousuke picks up 2 kills there, then Kixan might have time to reload and they might be in a reasonable spot. But thinking more about it, realistically, that is just a little bit too aggressive. Kixan, if he just stays corner or doesn't go so low on ammo so he can ensure that he can get a couple as they run through, he's totally safe. Instead, he just goes a little too aggressive, gets a little too confident spamming down through that smoke, and they end up getting punished for it. But again, if Kyousuke hits a couple of kills, if he hits, the shots he probably should be, that's really not that much of a problem. So following round, you'll notice, by the way, if you look at his kills, kill death, kill death, kill death, kill death, they're like right on top of each other. He's not really getting kills and getting away. He's in very aggressive spots, or he gets caught and traded very quickly, which is not what you necessarily love. Again, he's going to be playing on this corner looking to re-aggress off of a flash. This time he gets naded for 50 damage right off the jump, and they end up going a little more passive. Tyloo just set up for a straight-up B-pop. They're looking to catch them off guard with their utility not ready. Kicksan throws the utility. They don't have a flash to swing off of this, but Kyousuke still gets a kill and an instant headshot on the second player, but Kicksan can't get a single frag, and then you have B site controlled by Tyloo. And then unfortunately, because they have no information on Banana, their team just doesn't have time to rotate over, and they're going to end up having to save. Now, this one isn't necessarily on Kyousuke. I think sometimes when you look at Falcons, their macro is not the most comfortable. Like, it's sometimes a little too obvious whether they're playing in or outside of Banana, and I feel like that definitely is something that Tyloo could have read here, that, oh, they're not throwing the utility they almost always throw. They've thrown almost nothing towards Banana except for one missed nade that ended up hitting a wall it shouldn't have. They're not playing in Banana, so we're just going to set up and try and do a fast pop off of the, the car utility, and that's exactly what they did, and it worked out. I can't say for sure they had that information, but sometimes it does feel like that type of thing is a little obvious when you're watching Kyousuke or you're watching Falcons as opposed to some other teams. Maybe because of the way the players individually play is a little easier to read, not as much about the team itself or the way they like to set up their sides as a team. So this round they gamble off of B. Kyousuke goes for the stack towards middle. They're in a 4v3. I really don't like this as a 4v3 play. Kicksan is actually going to end up missing his molly, so there's just a gap in front of it, and Jamyeon can get ahead of it, which is fine. It happens sometimes. He also misses the smoke, which is also fine. It happens sometimes, but this just feels like such a Falcons play where they have a 4v3. They probably just could go for a 2-2 stack. They even have Nico and Monesi as their A players. They could try and split 2 on one side, 2 on the other, or they could even have Kyousuke holding Arch from like back deep here so that he can rotate over quickly. He has a flash, so he could even come through CT and flash for Kicksan when the B site hit comes through, but I'm not like super unhappy with this play. It's just unfortunate Kicksan misses the molly and then he misses the smoke. So they end up in this spot where they lose control because of a very aggressive play from Tyloo. And this is the kind of a gamble play from Tyloo. You have to also admit this as well, that they easily could have run into a bomb site with 2 players here or, a standard setup, and it would have been pretty disastrous for them. Instead, they run into the site with 1 player, and Kicksan, he sees his players here at top Banana thinking that they're going to push through and start helping, and he's going to try and push and they'll collapse because he noticed that he missed that smoke that he already threw. Unfortunately for him, they're smoked off on Banana by that smoke that he thought he missed a little bit worse than he did. And because of that, the timing looks kind of crazy. It looks like he made he did make quite a big misplay there, but at the same time, that's not a misplay that I think you can fault people too heavily for. He saw that the smoke bounced weird. He thought it bounced even worse. It actually didn't. And so he made a play based off the information that he had. It just wasn't a perfect play. I still think they could have played a slightly different setup, but I don't think you can blame that one on Kyousuke. If you actually look through the stats, you can find that Nico is one of the players that's really struggling on this map, or he was when I looked at the stats about a month and a half ago. And when I watched the games, it never felt like Nico was really playing all that badly. It felt more like they were trying to put so many resources to their B players, or their B players were falling so easily that their A players didn't have much of a chance to do anything. And I still feel that as I'm watching this now, as I watch this live, it still feels like their A players aren't really the problem. Even if their A players are not necessarily performing all that well, it becomes very tough when your B is this weak, this exploitable. So in this case, he boosts up Nico. They're tripled up on B. They don't have the perfect buy. He gets smoked off, throws a counter smoke, and I think his smoke misses slightly because of the molly that he threw beforehand. So there is a bit of a gap. He actually ends up getting spotted here, I think, as he runs across. So he starts spamming down, which makes this look really awkward. He gets one, doesn't have the chance to get away, which is what you would hope. Either you sometimes can get away even towards the bomb site, or you can get back in towards CT, but he can't manage to do either of those options. But if we're talking about the real problem, I feel like this is the real problem. Kicksan gets mollied, moves to first oranges, hit for 32 damage, and then gets hit down to 4 health from a Molotov before finally swinging out into the open, full blind, spamming, and gets 0 kills. Now, could Kyousuke have done a little bit better? Yeah. Maybe he could have even boosted Nico and immediately gone towards Coffin, so they had a 3-man setup that made maybe a little bit more sense. He could have thrown the smoke so that there wasn't a bit of a gap in it, which kind of made that look quite awkward, the way he had to try and defend once he had already been spotted. But at the same time, you're not really going to find all that much success in any case if your teammate on the bomb site goes first oranges and takes 96 damage from a Molotov. I feel like as this game progresses, you can see that Tyloo more and more have a foothold or an understanding of the way that the reactions are going to come out from Falcons and can force those reactions. And you're seeing that here. I mean, this is one where he's got a 5.7, he's trying to go for a play. On one hand, you want to let your pistols go for plays like that. On the other hand, you also have an M4 and an AWP on the other side of the map. I do wish oftentimes that you would allow that M4 and AWP to actually activate and become the chance of your team winning the round. On the other hand, if you play too passive, you can see as this game is going, the way playing too passive can be a problem. You have to actually have some threat of aggression, or your opponents can just take full map control and go for a fast exec without even worrying, and you're just stuck there that no matter how much utility you have, if your opponents do a really good exec, it becomes quite complicated or very challenging to actually use that utility really effectively, especially if your team on the bombs that you're trying to hold isn't playing all that well together. So as much as I would lean towards saying that the AWP and the rifle should be making the first aggressive contact, I totally understand why Kyousuke went for that play. I don't think it's necessarily a huge misplay. Again, it just feels like he's getting read super hard by his opponents in a way that most other B players are not. Then finally back on guns, round 11, they again get a player aggressively controlling banana. Kicksan gets boosted up at the start. Kyousuke will make his way back over towards the A bomb site, and he's in a pretty good position here to get something done. But again, it feels like Tyloo have all of the information and all of the ability to manipulate rotates, while Falcons and Kicksan, I was going to say, are really just kind of guessing as to what's going on. They have no real effective read as to how these rounds are playing out. They're just hoping that they can 50-50 gamble in the correct direction or hit really nice shots and prevent their opponents from taking map control in the way they want. And that's exactly what happens here. I mean, Kyousuke was in a good position. Kicksan made a good call for a flash. They swing out off the flash and it's a free 2 kills. Then for the final round of the half, we have a bit of a change up. You actually have the aggression again coming out of Falcons. Again, I feel like the problem is that their aggression is a little bit too readable when they do go aggressive, and when they don't go aggressive, they're really susceptible to just straight up bomb site execs, and they don't have a great synergy on actually dealing with those execs. Of course, Tyloo has some really crisp execs, makes it very hard to deal with, but at the same time, you expect a little more out of the players together. But here, they lose a player in CT, so Kicksan and Kyousuke want to go for the trade. They want to take some control back. You have a very passive play from Tezes and Monesi on the other side, so something does kind of have to happen here eventually. Although this smoke towards Moto means that this play doesn't need to happen as quickly as it does. They could definitely take a little bit more time and try and decide what they want to do a few seconds later. But at the same time, if they do wait, then those players get pinched towards pit. It becomes very complicated. The goal here should be, though, that you have to take your time enough that you can make sure you get trades. You can make sure you can take some control back safely. It's not a rush. Your teammates do have some time. And instead, unfortunately, Kicksan and Kyousuke kind of line up. I thought they lined up for a second, but it's just maybe a little bit too obvious. When Zero gets that first kill, he's looking for the second player. They know this re-aggression is coming out. They know this is the way that Falcons are likely to play. He gets the first kill, swings out, and gets a second. And I mean, that's really nice shots from Zero. I have to say, like, watching that from his POV, he just hit some really nice movement. In fact, the movement, if you watch it from Kyosuke's POV, it makes it very tough to actually kill him. Almost like donk slide-esque. You can see how tough it would be for Kicksan to get that frag. But from Zero's POV, it's a nice shot, but not that crazy of a shot. It's just a well-played round. The problem I have with much of this half is that, again, it becomes very obvious when they're going for an aggressive play and when they're not, when they're going to be playing on the bomb site. And when you can see Tyloo realize that Kicksan and Kyousuke are playing on the bomb site, they just go set up, get ready, and then go for an exec, even through utility, even through a molly, even through a smoke. They have really crisp execs, but it's mainly that they don't need to worry too much about the ability for Falcons to hold those execs. They just can't. So watching this back, I mainly wanted to look at the CT side, but then I saw this stack of rounds here where they have 5 rounds in a row where Kyousuke dies without getting a kill, and then a 6th round where he gets 1 kill and immediately falls. And I'm kind of interested in seeing exactly how this plays out. Having watched this round shortly already, this is, again, the reason I'm titling this video the Kyousuke problem is I'm not sure it's his fault. I'm not sure if it's his teammate's fault, but it feels so often that Kyousuke gets a certain amount of frags, but the impact from those frags, or the impact from the rounds where he doesn't frag, feels to weigh heavily on their ability to win. And this is a really awkward round, I have to say right here, that isn't really his fault. So he throws that arch smoke. I mean, actually, I would say that this definitely could be his fault, but the way his team is playing, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to this. Tez is holding for the apartments play. He can also pivot and help support if a play comes towards truck, and then Monacy's holding towards arch. The problem I have is that he can't be holding this. As the smoke goes down, you actually need to be traded, I think, the sides that you're watching, or someone needs to be looking for this exact play, because Kyousuke is just back turned, free kill, like nothing he can do there. I think really it has to be that Monacy holds lane, Kyousuke holds arch, and Tezes holds, can trade on lane. The reason the reason you often see oppers do things differently is because if this player dies from someone arch, it's actually quite hard for this opper to pivot and get the trade. So this is a real 1v1. If this guy walks out here, this is a straight up 1v1. So one of the solutions might be that you'd have the opper watching this, and then you'd have Kyousuke turn around and then molly this after, so that you're double watching that angle. Then once this is dealt with, then the opper can be posted here and the rifler can still be posted here. But if you don't have someone clear that angle, one or both of you kind of has to be looking that direction. Otherwise, you're going to see exactly what happened there, which is Kyousuke dies. And you don't even necessarily need to get the trade from Monacy. He easily could have not got that trade if that frag went his way and then he jumped away instantly. Instead, we do see the trade come out, which means Kyosuke's job was essentially done. It's just a really awkward lineup in terms of who's looking where in my eyes. But okay, we go into the next round. They go for a lineup. They're trying to stack themselves towards a B hit, the same way Tyloo tried to do against them. They are 12-10 up, so they have plenty of ability. But again, if you look at Tyloo, they're 3-man stacked. They have a decent idea of what might be happening here. They're ready for it. You can see the trade come out. Nico gets spotted, gets killed. Kyousuke goes in, pre-aims in pretty much the right spot, just can't get the right kill. I don't even think he lands a shot here. Pre-aims. This is kind of the pre-aim. Oh, he's just not counter-strafe fast enough. It seems like he's... And then he's somehow, as he's crouching, he's shooting just a millimeter over Jamyoung's head. So, not really his fault, necessarily. Kind of an odd strat. Nico, they're not expecting an op there, obviously. And as soon as the op gets spotted, I think the round breaks down. He tries to swing out to get a trade because they're surprised by the opper. I think that's a totally justifiable play by Kyousuke. That's the type of play you're going to see people make all of the time. And it's going to work out. Sometimes it's going to work out. It's going to fail sometimes. I think it really comes down to the being caught off guard by an op that they probably shouldn't have been caught off guard by. Here, kind of low-key blocking Nico if Nico had any feeling like he wanted to back up, but as it turns out, that should be just fine. And then he walks straight into an op. An op that was there the previous round as well, but this time it's going to be there a second time. Kyousuke walks straight into it. And this is like Falcons in their full breakdown mode. I mean, I don't even want to blame this on Kyousuke. It's just that they're going for a stack up. They're trying to go together towards B and try and go for an exec in the early round. And it feels like they might be trying to, I've thought this in the past, that they might be trying to limit the ways that people can die. You see teams play like this sometimes where they just know look, if we slow the rounds down, people are going to make mistakes. Our protocols aren't good enough. We're going to lose lives. And so we need to just group up and go for an exec early on to prevent that from happening. But as soon as your opponents can read that into you, that they know, you're going to slow things, or you're going to speed things up when games get close because you don't trust your individual players, that's pretty much as soon as your team is screwed. You have to have some level of your opponents don't know what your plan is in order for your macro to actually work. It's actually Tezes that gets the double entry, but I think that's fine. Kyousuke would have gotten the second one if Tezes didn't. Then he just overfights towards Arch. I don't think that fight was necessary at all. He probably was expecting that his teammate was going to peek with him, but to be honest, this is just like a face-it type peek. A smoke is coming down. It's totally unnecessary to actually go for this peek. You know that smoke is about to fall a second later. You can go for you can prod into this if you want. You can actually try and look for a little jiggle. That jiggle on the right, too aggressive. It's a 5v3. You have a big advantage, but it's also overtime. It's killing someone arch isn't going to help you monetarily. I could even justify this if you're in regulation. I can justify this a lot more with the idea you're trying to take money out of your opponent's hands, but that really doesn't matter. So I can't find any good justification. This peak is even fine, peeking in here, but why is he continuing to go wider? This swing is crazy to me. I'm even fine with that kind of little peak here because it feels like you have a decent advantage, and at least you can justify taking a fight here when you have a good advantage because the round isn't 100% in your favor. A lot of the time, I think when people try and play too safe, you end up having things go wrong because you're just not taking engagements where even if they're not perfect in terms of macro, they're fine. Like they're okay because the engagement is enough of an advantageous gunfight that you can say, okay, winning this gunfight 70% of the time is going to be good enough to boost our chances to win, even though losing it could be a bigger problem. It's kind of justifiable from that perspective. Not to say that it's a good play, it's just that I can understand the reasoning behind it, if that makes sense, right? I would prefer he wouldn't, but I understand that players don't always make the optimal play because you're in game, you're in a hectic situation. Oftentimes you're just trying to make the play that you know, like you have a good feel for it. Like you know that that's a winning gunfight, so you're going to go for it. The swing out wide, I don't have a justification for that because it's not a great gunfight. It's already 5v3. It's just, there's so many things wrong with it. I can't understand it. But again, this is going to be the 5th round in a row that they lose Kyousuke without him getting a single kill. Of course, this is T-side Inferno. You can't blame too much on losing rounds on T-side of Inferno. They get smoked off. They go through. Kyousuke just can't land the kill. There's no second flash for some reason. Is there only one? There's one. They don't go with the first one. They go with the second one. Kyousuke goes through. Nico's already well through, so I think spacing-wise, this looks really odd. If someone's sitting on the other side of the smoke, I think Kyousuke was probably supposed to go through on the previous flash. I mean, I guess in this case, Nico actually already knew that there was no player there, so I can understand why he goes through. Kyousuke ends up going through. I wish there was better layered flashes from this exec from Falcons, to be honest. They have a couple of flashes early, but if you could imagine, sometimes you can throw a flash that lands like here as they're coming through here. And if you're fighting and a flash lands there, this guy pillar, this guy, you know, here, there's a lot of different angles that actually really prevents from being able to do almost anything. But regardless, Kyousuke is in a pretty good position here, I think, fundamentally. He goes through the smoke, he gets into a straight up fight. It's just honestly really nice movement from Mosiah. I thought it was Mosiah, but then I heard some people calling him Mosia. I don't know. Whatever. Solid movement from him. Like the swing out to the right actually really catches Kyousuke off guard. I think Tyloo's kind of underrated in terms of the individual ability of their players, and you can see that from Jam Young's perspective, especially when you look at him. The way he plays this is just so clean, but at the same time, it's the timings from Falcons. Like, look at how I mentioned earlier about the timings on the right and left side of the smoke. Look how this works. There's one. Okay, he moves his crosshair over. He knows the second player is coming through the left. You know the second player is coming through the other side. Like, Jam Young is so ready for each player in this push. Every time they pivot to the other side, he's so ready for it because he knows exactly what's going on. He knows where the second player is likely to come from, and the second, third, fourth player, they're not pushing out at the same time. Of course, it's tough when the round breaks down like that because you have to make the play on your own, kind of at your own pace. You have to understand what your teammates are going to do, what timings they're going to hit. It becomes quite complicated when it breaks down like that, but at the same time, those are the type of rounds that you really need your best players to be making smart plays and making the correct timings on, because these are overtime rounds. These are chaotic, broken down rounds. This is when you need the most help. And I'm not saying he's doing a terrible job. It's just, it's a little bit harder to play the game when you can't really, like, you don't know what you can expect out of a player. When you can't predict the way the map is going to go, that sometimes B is just going to fall over and fail completely, and sometimes he's going to get an ace. But you know, getting an ace doesn't make up for if you die with 0 kills 5 rounds in a row and then you get 1 ace. Well, you've lost your team 5 rounds and you've won them 1. It doesn't really make it up mathematically, even though scoreboard wise you went 5-5, right? It's a tough one, but I think what people are seeing when they say Kyousuke is overrated, they're looking at his playoff stats. That's one thing, but I think part of what they're seeing is that they're seeing a Kyousuke where statistically he has these unbelievable numbers, especially in group stages, but in general he has some like really strong numbers, but then when you watch him play, it just doesn't feel like he carries the game the way a Donk does, and I think this is part of it, that he just doesn't find consistent output.